All right. What's going on, everybody out there? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional. And tonight we have Dr. L. Aleem Bey in the building. Today we're going to discuss, are African Americans really Native Americans tonight? We're going to talk about that. Before we do, let's run this commercial. Here we go.
Peace family. Welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From the 5% Nation, Nation of Islam, Moorish movement, and Masonry. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through super chats during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every super chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.
All right, we're back. Thank you for coming out this evening, Dr. Aleem Bey. Before we get started, how you doing, first off?
I'm doing good.
That's peace. So now, online right now, there's a lot going on. You got the conversation between Professor James Smalls, and you have his issue with the FBA group and things like that. And that's like they're going back and forth, so to speak. And it's kind of a hot topic right now. And there's a lot of I would say people who do not subscribe to the fact that African Americans are Native Americans. And, I just want to build with you on that. And what's your see on that?
I'm going to say I like the way in which that Dr. Clyde Winters explained it to me. We have the genetics of European wars. We have the genetics of American Indians, called Moors. We also have the genetics of Africans. The thing is, when you take a DNA test, it is trying to make a determination if you are Paleoamerican or if you are African, born here 400 years ago on slave ships. And the problem is with that is that no one has yet given us the answer to something that I asked 20 years ago. And before me, Brother Hakeem H.Y. Bey asked the same question. What was the distillation process for the Europeans on the ships in which that took 4 months for them to travel from where they was located at in Europe to North America?
Okay.
What was the distillation process turning salt water into fresh water?
Okay.
And no one has been able to give us an answer for that. And that's the problem in which that we've been having, is that until we can get answers, to something that simple, because obviously no one wants to answer that, because then it would shake the foundation of the whole slave ship theory of the transatlantic slave.
All right. So you said, what's the distillation between?
What was the distillation? Being able to turn, in other words, nobody believed that Jesus turned water into wine.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
At least this is what, metaphysicians say, and so forth and so on. But these same metaphysicians can't tell us how did they turn salt water into fresh water. What machine did they use to distill salt water into fresh water?
You mean in order for them to survive on the boats that long?
For 4 months. I mean, you need water you can only go without water for about a week and a half.
Okay. I like that.
Four,
That's a
four,
good point right there.
4 months. Somebody got to tell me something. So that is the issue in which that is going on. And then you go to the major museums throughout the world, and they do not have any symbols of slavery. They have the Olmec civilization, in which that we know that was here 5,000 years ago. And we know that they was allegedly Negroid. What people don't want to talk about is the fact that they were Atlanteans. They was called the Meru people as well. Now, when you go to Webster Dictionary, this is Universal Webster unabridged. It states when you look up the word Moor, M-O-O-R, you in parentheses you will see M-E-R, mere. Now, when you go to also Webster Dictionary, and that's the thesaurus, excuse me. And then when you go to Webster Universal Unabridged Dictionary of 1937, it says that the original application of the name for America is Mir or Meru, M-E-R-U.
Okay. Now, before you continue, right, we have the brother Wise Dome TV. He's saying that's not an issue. That's a major pseudo judo. He's disrespectful to our ancestors and our mother.
No, I'm not disrespectful. I'm asking a question, and obviously you can't answer it. So I would recommend that you go and do some research and study on that or what I'm talking about, and then come back and give an intelligent answer. Because right now, only thing that is shown is your pseudoism, because you can't answer the question. I can. You
Okay,
can't.
so maybe he's talking about the water part is not an issue. For
Oh,
me,
that's the issue.
that to me that's an issue because 4
If,
months without water.
and you got 200 people on the ship.
That's interesting.
That is packed in like sardines. We talking about vomiting, spitting, shitting, pissing on themselves. 4 months. Somebody got to give me the answer to the distillation process. Until I hear a Moor or American Indian or a so-called European answer that question, we don't have nothing to discuss as far as the so-called slave trade. Because I have yet to hear that from any scholarship coming from the African community and from those who call themselves African Americans or Pan-Africanists. And I know that for a fact because I was there. These are questions in which that they never asked themselves and thus never had the answer for. And because of that, all you can do is give regurgitated nonsense, pseudoism. That's all. That's all you got. Is pseudo? That's the only word that you know how to use, huh?
So the brother's asking, can you show me your books on the transatlantic slave trade? Basically, do you know? I don't know. I want to put words in your mouth, but do you?
I was a student of Dr. Ben Yakinen. Case closed.
You were a student of
I was a student also of Dr. Wayne or Professor Wayne Chandler. Case closed.
Okay. So now I want to go to now you were building, you were flowing, right? Now I don't know where you left off.
Right. Well, I was talking about Meru, for example. If you get the book in which that is called by Charles Vell, I think is Mystic ancient mystic masonry. There's a portion in there in which that tells us that North America was known as Atlantis. It says America, in parentheses, Atlantis. Now, when you go and do some research, you'll find that Lorneman insisted that the human race issued from Meron, and Theopompus tells us that the people who inhabited Atlantis were the people of Meru. And Meru is the origin of the name America. Okay, so this is what we are put together is the information which is coming from out of Masonic lodges. They are telling us this information. They also tell us that the Meru of India and of the Indian literature is none other than the Meru, who are the people from out of Sudan.
Okay, I have a question for you. So, what a measurable? I don't know if you would know this. I'm not sure. I
Mhm.
guess you would answer this question the best way you can. What measurable percentage of African Americans show Native American ancestry in DNA studies, and how do you explain the overwhelmingly West African genetic markers? That is my thing.
Yeah, the West African genetic markers come from the fact of that we mixed in with more than 20,000 Africans who came from out of Mali, who was under the rulership of Abu Bakari II, which was 200 years before Christopher Columbus even came here and sailed the ocean blue.
Okay, that's something I
He,
gotta rewind.
he,
I gotta
he,
rewind.
Abu Bakari came here with 2,000 ships. Before Christopher Columbus, 3 ships.
Abu Bakari.
The
Okay.
Nia, the Pinta, and Santa Maria ain't had nothing on Abu Bakari, 2,000 ships. And you take 2,000 ships times just 10 people, that's 20,000. Now, if you times it 100, that's 200,000 people. So we're talking about an estimate between 20,000 to 200,000 Africans who came from out of the interior of Africa from Mali, who was part of the Mandinka and the Dogon people
Mm.
who came here to the shores prior to Christopher Columbus. 200 years, almost 200 years before that. They came in 1311 through 1313 AD. Christopher Columbus didn't sail the ocean blue until 1492. At least that's what we're told.
Mm. Okay. So you would say that's where the West African genetic markers would come from?
Right. It didn't come from the European in 1619 bringing all of us over here on slave ships. No, it did not. That's my point.
Okay. Okay.
Because he didn't have the technology then, he doesn't have the technology now to do that. Okay.
Okay. So now, if the majority of African Americans were
Oh,
already
and let me answer the question. About 98% of us have Native American genetic markers as well. 60% of us have E1B1A genetic marker of Y haplogroup. That genetic marker goes back, all right, to D haplogroup. E haplogroup is derived from D haplogroup. And D haplogroup is part of the Native American haplogroup that existed here in the Western Hemisphere.
okay.
And so 60% of the Y DNA specifically amongst the so-called African Americans, is measured by those genetic markers. And not only are they Native American genetic marking, it is which goes back to what is called the Clovis people, Clovis, Clovis people. Look up that information. This is not to be making mockery of, because if you can't prove me wrong, please move on with the crazy comments, because this is science here. All right, I have a bachelor's in sociology and history. I have an MLS in Indigenous law. I have a PhD. So someone got to come with information in which that I've never heard before. And so this information that we're talking about is correlating historically to information that most of us was never taught, and most of us never went through any Masonic training. I've gone through Masonic training, as well as also these are historical clues in which that was left in Masonic books, in which that is not a secret.
Now I got a question in the chat. Did you take a DNA test?
Yes. And my genetic markers, all 22 chromosomes, go back to the Clovis people, which is markers in which that dates back to 13,000 to 14,000 years ago. They don't want to take it further back, because then that means that you would be pre-Clovis people. And technically we were, because there's a question in which that was asked, well, who existed here 50,000 years ago? And that question was answered by an individual who is a doctor and professor from out of South Carolina State University. His name is Albert Goodyear. And he did forensic studies, and he did archaeological studies on the finds that he have gathered from out of the Savannah, Georgia area. And he has stated that these are Negroid genetic markers that he have discovered. And it goes back to 50,000 years ago. So that is 40,000 years before the Siberians is said to have come across the Bering Strait, or what is known as across from out of Russia, China area into Alaska to become the Eskimos and Inuit people and come down into the plains or become the plain Indians. And then, of course, we know that in the late 1800s and going into the turn of the century of the 1900, we see that there was a court case in which that spoke about the fact of making Chinese Native Americans. The reason why is because they know that the Siberians who came over here are the cousins to the Chinese. So they simply made the Chinese, after they had them to do the San Francisco gold rush in 1849, they didn't know what to do. So they reclassified them, not as Chinese, but as Native Americans. And then you have the $5 Indians, who are the Europeans who came in, and they brought their way into the various tribes, or the so-called 5 civilized tribes. And this is why the 5 civilized tribes are predominantly European to this day.
Okay, now, before I go to my next question, the brother Wise, the Dome TV says, ask him what his haplogroups are.
My haplogroup, Y haplogroup, is E1B1A, which means that I am a Hebrew Israelite by bloodline, I'm also a Moor, as well as also related to Ramesses III, who sat on the throne of ancient Egypt, Kemet, and who was the father of the Olmecs during the 20th dynastic period. I know exactly who I am. The question is, who are you?
All right. Now, if the majority of African Americans were already here, why do nearly all Black families have genealogical records traced back to plantations and not tribal roles?
Because they enslaved the people who was here. Why would you travel 3,000 miles away for a trip that takes 4 months, as I just told you about a second ago, a few minutes ago, in order to get people when you got people who is here in this Western Hemisphere that you can manipulate and do the bidding. They went to the islands. They told you where they went. They went to the islands, went to the coast of South America, Central America, brought them up into North America and vice versa. And they just did a triangular move along the coast of the Eastern Hemisphere, the Eastern of the West, as they call it, the West. I believe that the map is upside down personally, and that we're in the East, but that's another story. So I think that they just simply did a triangular motion with the ships instead of traveling all the way over to Africa. They utilized the so-called people who was already here. And we already know that is partly true because they told us early on in history that they had Native Americans as slaves. And then they said that the Native Americans knew the terrain too well, so they had to end up going to Africa in order to get Africans who didn't know the terrain and therefore brought them back so they can be the new slaves.
What is it? Rondu. What is a 9V? I don't know what that is. What's a 9V? Okay. So now the third question is, why do indigenous tribes themselves have documented continuous ancestry, distinct languages, and cultures, while most African Americans do not?
Because the darker skinned Native, or as I would say, American Indians or Moors, the darker skinned Moors who did not accept the reservation and would not accept the plantation was ostracized, and they was reclassified as Negro, Black, and colored. And that is the position that you are in to this very day. Prophet Noble Drew Ali told you that he was raised on the Cherokee reservation. So he was telling us that he was Cherokee. However, because he did not accept the Cherokee label and was put onto a reservation, he was a Moor.
Okay.
And he brought back the Moorish heritage. As far as saying that we was Moors of Morocco. But Morocco is not what you think it is. Morocco is not the country in Africa. Morocco is the empire. The Moroccan Empire included the United States, because who recognized the United States is the question. It was the Iroquois Confederation who recognized the United States. And the Iroquois Confederation was a group of Moors. And how we know this is because you have the Lenape Moors who met William Penn when he came in which that we have the name Pennsylvania name after to this very day. But that was the territory of the Lenni Lenape people. And the Lenni Lenape people was known as the Delaware Moors. Not only were they called the Delaware Moors, they was also called the Nanacoats. Okay? And they ran all the way up from out of Maryland Delaware, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, on up into New York. Some of the Lenape remnants are the Montauk, the Shinnecock, even the some go into the fact that right there in Central Park was a whole village of the Seneca people, in which that was buried over by the European in order to make what we now refer to as Central Park. But that was a so-called Moor or American Indian territory or area at one time, what we now call Central Park. That was called Seneca Village.
Okay. Now I want to go into the transatlantic slave trade records a little bit, like just speak upon it a little bit. There are meticulous shipping logs, port records,
Right.
plantation
And
manifest.
only about 300,000, according to Emory University from out of Atlanta, Georgia, states specifically that only about 300,000 Africans was brought here through the transatlantic slave trade. The majority or the vast majority of the so-called slaves went to Brazil, allegedly. That we
Yeah, I
talk
saw
about
that
which
somewhere
were the
too.
millions.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that before.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means that this story have changed so many times over the years. Because they told us that they brought millions of us here. Come to find out, it was only 300,000.
Okay. Okay, how do you reconcile your position with the archaeological evidence of African presence in West/Central Africa and slave forts like the Elmina, Gori Islands, etc.? And like the whole thing, like in Ghana, like there's a whole
Right. There's a whole
thing
um
around
uh,
slavery, and it's like
yeah,
you
I
know you
didn't
could.
say that. I did not say slavery did not exist. I'm just saying that to bring a massive amount of people on a boat packed like sardines, there are essentials that you need. That's what I'm saying. Now, if you had a smaller group, you're able to conduct and manage a smaller group. There's no doubt about it. If you had about 10 people, then that's a different story. But you got 200 people, 300 people, 500 people.
The brothers are asking for your sources.
Common sense is number one. Number two are several books in which that now you can receive. You can get The Return of the Ancient Ones by Empress Verdiasi Tierra Washington L. Bay. She speaks about the fact that 85% of our ancestry was already here, and only about 15% of our ancestry was brought from Africa recently within the 400 years. In other words, there was millions of us that was already here prior to the 300,000 in which that we just made mention of, in which that Emory University states that came to North America.
Now, of course, I'm open minded, and I'm not ever really saying no to information that I'm not sure of, that I haven't, took a deep dive into to
Right.
figure out whether it's right and exact or not. I'm not doing that, right? Because a lot of the information that we have, whether it's dealing with Pan African teachings, etc. A lot of the sources do come from also European studies as well. So we
Exactly.
so we got to really be careful, right? With our perception and the way we see things, because it could be controlled and seen through a European scope, if you will, right? So
Right.
we gotta be careful and open minded. You got to be careful and open minded. Definitely, for sure. I would like to see. I would
This-
like to see. I would like to see the sources from our people and what we're saying, and the sources
Okay.
from other historical events as well.
Okay. Well, let me give you another wonderful Ethiopians of the ancient Kushite Empire, written by Drusilla Houston. She
Okay.
states in there that there was 3 continents in which that was populated heavily by Negro people. And she says America was one of them.
And what's her name? You said.
Her name is Drusilla Houston.
Houston. Okay. I'm gonna check
Yeah.
that out.
hmm
I'm gonna check that
And
out.
she's the one who wrote about the fact that the first men of the ancient world were the men of Meru. And the word Meru means more or Moors. When you add the U on it, it becomes plural.
Mhm. Well, brother, Wise Dome TV, man. We were supposed to do a podcast a while back, man. I'm inviting you. You could build me and you on how you see things as well. As far as the African diaspora, the transatlantic slave trade, and things of that nature. Now, to the sixth question, um, if African Americans were Native Americans in large numbers, why do why did European colonizers create an entire global economy based on the capture and transport of Africans?
Because Africans were not the only ones who was being captured and transported. So were the so-called American Indians, i.e., the Moors. In other words, our forefathers and foremothers as well were taken into slavery and was also, according to my readings, 300 people went back into Europe with Christopher Columbus when he left on his last voyage.
I think I read that somewhere.
Right, right. He took 300 of us from here to Europe. Now, when I went to the Grand Lodge of England, see, this thing is that most people don't travel. So only thing they got to rely on is a book. But because I get a chance to travel all over the world, I've gone to the Grand Lodge of England. All right. And the curator of the museum portion asked us specifically, how you feel about the possibility of your first black president? Talking about Obama. This was 2008. And it was about a week or two before Obama became president, which we all knew, the whole world knew he was going to become president, because I never seen nothing like that before. I mean, they had like he was Michael Jackson. They had posters of him all up, even in Europe, in England. Okay. And when I went there, um, my wife turned around and said, there was more than 9 before him. And he jumped back and said, who told you that? You're not supposed to know that. Did they tell you that?
Hmm.
Oh, so that was a Masonic secret that we decoded. No problem. Why? Because we did research. Why? Because I wrote a book on it called The First World Order. All right.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, that's an old book, right?
Right.
Yeah, that,
That's my first published book.
right. That was a long time ago. I remember
Right.
that.
That was in 2009.
Yeah,
And actually I wrote it in 2004.
I remember. That's back in the days, man. Wow. Now, okay, we went through that. Okay. Now, cultural and linguistic differences. Why don't African Americans share indigenous languages, religion systems, or material culture the same way other native groups do?
We do. We're the ones who gave monotheism to the world. the belief in one God came from us. That's a known fact. But Moses the third, Akhenaten, who's known as Amenhotep the fourth. Amenhotep the fourth, who is Akhenaten, the Unc-Unten, he was a monotheist. This is where the story of Moses comes from, is derived from. This is where the concept of the one God comes from. Is from him. We the ones in which that gave that concept to the world. When we talk about Kodesh and E, that's where the term Christianity comes from. When we talk about Judaism, we got the deity known as Tahuti, who is known as Jehuti. And Jehuti is Judaism. That's the origin of Judaism, is from Tahuti. When we're talking about Islam, we got Sarim. And Sarim is the origin of that, of the religion of Islam. And all three of these ancient practices existed within the ancient mystery school of Egypt, of Kemet. And Kemet was not just in Africa. Kemet had an empire. The dominion was scattered throughout the world. And anybody who do research and study on the ancient Egyptian mystery schools know that there was, if you ever read The Stolen Legacy by George G. James, he tells you that there was more than 18 ancient mystery schools scattered throughout the planet. And there was several in the so-called United States now, in North, South, and Central America. They existed right here. This is why the story of Quetzalcoatl, or what is known as Quetzalcoatl, exists, and why it's almost parallel with the story of Jesus. That he got crucified, that he got that he raised from the dead, that he got, when he was on the cross, he got nailed on the cross. All these types of things, all these same stories was told with Quetzalcoatl, who was known as the plumed serpent, which was right here in North America. So talking about the acknowledgement of the whole freaking religious system of the whole world came from us. What are they talking about?
Okay. All right. Now, African cultures such as Yoruba, Khan, Wolof influences is clearly embedded in Black American music, food, and spirituality. How did that happen if they were already here?
Because we just didn't stay here. We had a tendency of roaming the world, measuring the world. I mean, how would we, as 5%ers, know the diameter of the planet Earth? Did we just sit on a computer one day and say, hey, let me come up with that concept?
Man, listen.
196,400,000 square miles of the planet Earth. Wait, I mean, how we came,
Listen,
or did we travel the whole world?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you now. That's a good point right there. First of all, because that 120 or that supreme wisdom,
right,
is genius. And what Allah came up with the supreme mathematics, genius. How did they come up with all of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. And even if we take it back to the Dogons of Mali, and they understood what was in the heavens before the Europeans did. Like, these things, like, how are we able to know these things? You know what I'm saying? Like, where is it coming from? Exactly. So but now I want to go into another question. Why do most federally recognized tribes reject the claim that African Americans are the original members?
Because they are trained and taught by the Europeans. And they are Siberians. Anybody can see that they Siberians. I mean, just look at their facial features. They have Oriental facial features. A lot of them on these tribes, and if they don't have Oriental facial features, they have European facial features. The dark-skinned ones oftentimes are ostracized and are relegated and reclassified as Negro, blacks, and colors. That's how it's been for the last few hundreds of years.
Okay. All right. All right. How do you address the political implications, especially when tribes accuse this narrative of erasing indigenous identity and sovereignty?
Well, this is what we can do. We can go back and look at reports. There was a report by Dr. Bert Eli. He is a biology professor in the University College of Arts and Science and a colleague at the universities of Massachusetts and Maryland. And he revealed that fewer than 10% of the African American mitochondrial DNA sequence that was analyzed can be matched to mitochondrial DNA from one single African ethnicity. Meaning that you can't say that all of us came from just one ethnicity. This is not possible. Okay, so that means that we and then when you come to find out that Lucia, and when they reconstructed her face, one of the oldest skeletons of the Paleo Indians that was found in Brazil in South America, they reconstructed her face and it was a Negroid face. She had her skull
You
shape.
saying Lucy from South Africa?
No, Lucia.
Lucia.
Luzia. Lucia.
Okay.
Right. One of the oldest skulls of the Paleo Indians found in Brazil. And she was a Negroid. She was Negroid. You know? So once again, that dates back. In fact, Richard Nave at the University of Manchester in England, he's a forensics doctor, professor, and he is the one in which that said this is not this does not show the genetic markings or the head shape of a Native American. He said this is a Negroid head. This is what he said. In fact, this is hold on, let me pull it up. And this is what he said. He said the Brazilian find shows that the New World was discovered tens of thousands of years earlier than previously believed, certainly well before the time of the American Indian. In other words, before the Native Americans. Prehistoric skulls were found buried in layers of soil in Brazilian caves. They were the oldest skulls of America, the oldest skulls found in America. Lucia belonged to a race found historically along the rim of the Indian Ocean in the islands of South Asia, in East Africa, and in Australia and Malaysia. All right, this is BBC. He says that to me is a Negroid face. It was all of the features that you would associate it with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid. This is what he said. British forensic scientist Richard Naves. So as long as they are coming out and telling the truth, I'm going with what they're saying.
Okay.
Because I know that it makes common sense that if we are the oldest people on the planet Earth, we just didn't stay in Africa. We was on all 7 continents. Whether it was Pangea or when these continents begin to separate due to earthquake and volcanic activity, we were still there. So you're going to find us no matter what continent that you go to, you're going to find us. Because we are the oldest people on the face of the planet.
The original
people told us that 1 through 10 on the lessons. Who's the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe.
Right.
So who else you gonna find? Who else you gonna find?
Actual fact.
So it's hard for those who get stuck in Pan-Africanism to think that there was niggas in America before the cracker came on the planet. But I'm telling you, it was. Too bad. I'm sorry to bust your bubble on thinking that you just came from Africa just 400 years ago, bought by the poor European who can't take the sun, but yet he was on the he was out in the sun for 4 months.
Check. All right. Can you point to peer review historical, anthropological, and genetic research supporting your claims?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, let's read this by a Brazilian anthropologist. His name is Walter Neves. That's Neves. He says the first reaction was not to believe in it, just like most of the Negroes don't believe in it now. But as the results repeated so many times, and the result is exactly the same thing, the skulls are very similar to the Australian Aborigines and Africans, and no similarities at all with Mongoloids in Asia. This is what a Brazilian anthropologist stated. He stated this. Walter Neves.
Let me write this. Let me get this down. Walter
Neves. Neves. Walter Neves. Dr. Walter Neves. Brazilian scientist, archaeologist, anthropologist. He stated this. He said that the Lucia was a Negroid and nothing to do with Mongoloids in Asia, nor with, he goes even further, nor with Native Americans.
I don't mean to cut you off. Willie Humphreys. Why can't this live be shared? I don't know. It must be something wrong with on your end, because this live can be shared for sure. Share it, please. All right. Pardon me. Yep. You can go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're talking about. So when Webster Universal Dictionary 1937 states that an Aboriginal American, it gave the definition of American, an Aboriginal, one of the various copper-colored natives found on the American continent by the descendants of European settlers. The following is the original application of the name Meru. And the word Mir, which is the singular of Meru, or Moors. So they're telling you that America is the land of the Moors.
Okay. I think I don't know if you guys see his screen is frozen. Oh no, you're good now. It's on point.
Okay.
All right. Now, is it possible this now I'm like basically playing the devil's advocate here, right? Even though I don't like saying that, right? The devil's advocate.
Right.
I'm not a devil at all. Now, is it possible this belief gained traction because many African Americans lack knowledge of their specific African origins due to slavery, not because those origins don't exist?
No, because you can check your teeth genetically and find out if that's true or not. If you possess shovel teeth, which I suggest that you all do your research and study on that, this is another genetic sequence in which that if you understood properly, you would know that you are not just African, because Africans have straight teeth. They do not have shovel teeth. Majority of the so-called Negroes in America have shovel teeth, meaning that you can't be just African. And Dr. Clyde Winters already told us this in his book, that we're not just African. That's the name of the book. Get the book.
What's his name? You said?
We're not just African, by Dr. Clyde Winters.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Okay, now the teeth, shovel teeth, straight teeth. Africans,
Right. Africans and Europeans have straight teeth. They do not possess shovel teeth. If they have shovel teeth, then that means that they are part of the ancestry of those who came from out of the interior of America, out of North America in particular, because the shovel teeth are found amongst the Native Americans, the American Indians, and about 20% Asians. See, this is genetics.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that some groups pushing this claim profit from confusion and historical trauma experienced by Black people?
Some could be, but we talking about genetics and history and anthropology, as well as also archaeology, forensics, scientists, and I've mentioned all of that information. So how is that dealing with trauma? We just gave every sequence in which that if you took your ass to school and you're trying to get an A in class, you would have to do the research and study for that.
Okay. Now, if a conspiracy at large is rewriting the identity of tens of millions of people existed, who would have benefited and who maintained it for 400 years?
If you were the largest mass of people here, and they was able to put those who wanted benefits on reservations and use the largest mass of people by the millions, and they didn't want to go at war with you any longer, what would you begin to start teaching? This land is your land. This land is my land. This land is made for you and me. That's what you would do. Because we went to war with them from 1715 to 1860. And if you don't know the wars, then I suggest you go and do your research once again. You have the Yamasee Wars or Yamasee Wars. You have the Seminole Wars. And you also have the Gullah Geechee Wars. Those were the same people fighting against these individuals through Georgia and Florida. South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And they fought the Albion for over 200 years. Almost 200 years. 1715 to 1860. So at least 150 years documented. It was years before that, but it was also fighting. So when they say that we didn't fight back, we just allowed for them to put us in slavery? No, that didn't happen. In fact, we never lost the war. And when you do your research on the Seminole, Yamasee, and the Gullah Geechee wars, we never lost the war. They lost. So the only thing they could do was write us out of history. And this is why they don't talk about these particular wars. Because these are the wars in which that led to the Civil War in 1860, where they had to fight us some more. And not just some more, they was fighting Moors.
Okay. I think that was thorough, brother. That was thorough. I'm ready to rewind this and do the knowledge on it. I'm definitely Muddy Joe. Muddy Joe, talk about it. Thank you for the $20. I really appreciate you, Muddy Joe. Peace. Now I have something reading to do. I do too, sir. A lot. Let me see. Said the Yamasee Wars, and you said the Gullah
Seminole Wars and the Gullah Wars.
All right.
Those wars ran consecutively from 1715 to 1860 till the time of the Civil War. Actually, some say from 1858, but I say it had to be all the way until the Civil War, until we actually gained our freedom in 1863. And then, of course, they claimed that, well, we didn't tell nobody until 2 years later, to 1865, after the Emancipation Proclamation, all this nonsense. No, that's why they made Abraham Lincoln, who was a Negro, a Melungeon, documented by J.A. Rogers, documented by Sister Offset in their book, in both of their books, the 5 Negro presidents and then the 6 Black presidents.
Okay. That was thorough. On that note, thank you for coming out and joining us this evening. I really appreciate you sticking with us, man. We're growing. You help grow this platform. Really appreciate you greatly. You don't have to come on, you know what I mean? But you did. You supported us from the jump, man. And we salute you and greatly appreciate you for sticking with us, man. Hopefully you come back again and build on this very topic, because I would like to go into the Yamasee, the Gullah Geechee wars and the Seminole wars and all of that history, because it's not really being spoken about on these platforms. So if you want to let people know where they can find you, you can take it away.
You can find me on dralimlbay.com, dralimlbay.com. You can also find me on my Facebook, Dr. Alim El Bay, as well as also you can find me on YouTube, Asaru Alim El Bay. And so you can definitely hit me up on any place. I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Instagram, I'm on as well as TikTok.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's peace. All right, so I'm gonna definitely check you out on those platforms. Again, thank you for coming out this evening, brother. Peace to the God. First off, peace to the God, and we are out of here. Thank y'all for coming out this evening. Peace.
Peace, family. Welcome to NYP Talk Show. This is more than a podcast. It's a conscious platform rooted in truth and culture. From the 5% Nation, Nation of Islam, Moorish movement, and Masonry. Our mission is to reclaim our narrative and uplift the African diaspora with real stories and real conversations. Support us through super chats during live shows, donations on Cash App, GoFundMe, Patreon, or Buzzsprout, and by repping our official merch, available on our website and right here on YouTube's merch shelf. Every dollar, every super chat, every hoodie builds the movement. This is NYP Talk Show.